Micah, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You've created quite the reputation on Jubilee Surrounded. Talk to me and the viewers about how you actually got into that to begin with.
I had been interested in Jubilee for a long time. I had been very interested in debate, actually. I did a high school speech and debate. I saw Jubilee, I watched their videos, and to be honest, I thought to myself, I could probably do a better job than some of these people that are going on there. So I applied. They have a casting email, and then I got into one of the videos, and then they just kept asking me to come back.
Oh, so they're asking you to come back.
Yeah, I mean, after I did that first one, then they were like, "Hey, there's this opportunity. There's this opportunity. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?" And so now they'll occasionally reach out to me. I've once or twice reached out to them, been like, "Hey, I want to do this one. Like, this one looks fun." So, yeah, but it's been a good time.
Yeah, I think if I could take my best guess, you absolutely add to the dynamic of the whole situation, which is why I thought I'd reach out to you because in today's heated culture, you're definitely very calm and measured, and you add a lot in that respect. I'm curious, when the camera's off, is everybody calm like yourself, or is there still friction?
I mean, I would say most people are calm when the cameras are
Friendly.
off.
I guess friendly is
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah, everyone's friendly. I mean, there's been maybe a couple people that have been not great, but no, everyone's really friendly outside the camera. And yeah, everyone's pretty calm. There's definitely some performance that goes on with some people when the cameras are turned on. But yeah, I mean, behind the scenes, it usually is has been great.
hmm And do you find that people, once the cameras are on, uh, their demeanor changes to clip farm, so to speak? They're looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. There is definitely a significant amount of people that are trying to clip farm, that are trying to like just get a clip out of this. Um,
hmm
And so in my opinion, it's pretty obvious to tell who's trying to do that. I think they ask pretty disingenuous questions. Um, some people are there because they just want to have, a good time and they want to actually debate the ideas. And so, I like talking to those people. But yeah, definitely some people are there just to get a clip. And you can see that too in the how people vote with the red flags. Um, some people are voting purely because they want to go up and they want their moment, their 10 seconds of fame.
Yeah, how does that work? Because there have been times where I've been listening to a conversation. I get roped into the whole thing. Um, and I'm like, this gentleman's doing a really good job. And then before you know it, 15 red flags are up, and I'm assuming they're on the same side. How do the red flags work?
Yeah, so the red flags, they tell us that basically, if you think the person in the middle is doing a bad job, or you want to go up yourself, that you raise the red flag. And at first, they weren't telling us. They just said if you think the person in the middle is doing a bad job. But I think what they found is that the quicker people are voted up and like you have a bunch of different people, the better viewer retention is. And so they want people raising their red flags for that. And then people themselves want to go up and they want to get their moment of fame because there's only a limited amount of time for each prompt and for the whole video. And so there's usually several people by the end of it that don't have an opportunity to go up at all. And so that's definitely in the back of people's mind. I try to vote just purely based off of what I think the person in the middle is doing, if they're doing a good job or not. And so that's been my philosophy the whole time, but I know that's not everyone's.
You've debated against very sorry, it was lagging, it's catching up, caught up now. You've debated against very prominent social media influencer figures, political figures, Destiny, Cenk Uygur, Dean Whitaker. Is it Whitaker?
Withers, yeah.
Dean Withers. Dean
Yeah.
Withers. How do you prepare yourself to stay calm in such a heated environment like that, or pressured environment like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two ways. The first way is just through practice with other people. When you do practice, you will inevitably get fired up at some point. And so then you can be like, okay, why did I get fired up at that point? Was that a good job? And then you learn from that. And so practicing, I've gotten a lot of conversations. Not only did I do speech and debate in high school, but I'm very active in my church, and we do evangelism, and so we get into conversations with people. So that's really helped that as well. And so that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is kind of a confidence in your own view. I think when you are fully confident in your view, then you are able to present very calm. And so, for example, if you have a flat earther come on, you're probably not going to get super upset with the flat earther, just because you're very confident in your view that the earth is round. Like, this is very proven scientific fact. It's not going to get you riled up, right? Because you're confident in it. And so the same goes with these debates. If you're confident in your view and in the facts, then you can actually be more calm and logical than your opponent.
That's a massive component to it, but I'm also interested in how you play the ball, so to speak. So, for example, like in a game of tennis, you can play the best in training. You can be an unbelievable training player, but then as soon as you hop and the points on, equivalent being the camera's turned on, and you notice your opponent and you are intimidated by this opponent in the Jubilee surrounded environment, that would be, say, a social media influencer, that's a big deal. How do you stop seeing the face of the person and start playing the ball, which in this case
Yeah.
would be the arguments thrown your way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's hard, and what I will say is that there's always nerves a part of it. I think that's just part of what it is to be human, is to have
Mm-hmm.
nerves about these things. And so even though I've done, Jubilee like 8 times now, there's still always nerves going into it and having the conversation. Um, One, I would say, I think we actually we're more in tuned with our own thoughts, and so while we might be really really nervous on the inside, it doesn't come out that way to other people as much as we think it does. And so that can be a calming, reassuring thought to me. But then secondly, it's again practice. Like, the more you practice, the more you have these conversations and do it even with just other random people, the more you'll be confident in these things. And actually, I've noticed as I've done the Jubilee debates, as I've gotten used to specifically that environment and that format, my nerves have gone down. I was way more nervous for my first Jubilee video than this last one that I just did. And so, again, practice is a huge part to that.
Where do you think most people go wrong when they're debating, Jubilee or not? Just
Yeah.
courtyard.
That's a great question. Most people go wrong in not sticking to their point and to the topic. So what a lot of people like to do is bring up a point that they feel like is relevant, but doesn't actually respond to the argument that you made. And that's what we call in logic a red herring, right? And so a lot of people have a hard time sticking on to the subject. So I think you can see this best probably in my debate with Cenk Uygur. Uh, I'm asking Cenk, like, hey, what evidence do you have for your claim? Now, Cenk goes on this long rant, but notice, like, what I could have done is addressed some of the things that he said in his rant, but none of the things that he said in his rant actually answered my question, which was what evidence do you have to support this specific claim? And so all I did was ask him again for evidence. And I asked him this like 3 separate times, and he really couldn't give me an answer. He rambled on about a bunch of different irrelevant things that didn't actually answer my question. So I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They just let their opponent dictate where the conversation goes, as opposed to saying, "Hey, no. Let's bring it back to what we're actually talking about." You can also see this again in my debate with Dean on abortion. I had mentioned that I believe we're made in the image of God. Dean started taking that and started to say, well, we shouldn't legislate religion and whatnot. I pulled him back. I said, no. Listen, I didn't make a claim that we should be legislating religion. What my argument was saying is that we shouldn't murder people. Abortion is murder. Therefore, abortion is immoral. And so I brought him back. And so then we got back into the discussion and back into the debate. And so I think that's where a lot of people go wrong.
Have you noticed a change in the way that I want to say like schoolyard, but not even schoolyard debating. Let's just say outside off camera debates are conducted compared to on camera debates?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you have sort of 3 different kinds of debates. You have just online debate, which is just purely online, no face-to-face whatsoever. Then you have these debates that are like formal in person, but they're intended for an online audience. And then you have, the everyday interactions face to face, as you put it, like schoolyard debates or street debates, however you want to put it. And so there's definitely been, I think the online debate sphere has influenced the other 2 spheres, unfortunately. Um, Now I still think there is a difference. I just think when you are face to face with someone, that changes the game. They are no longer just a little circle and username leaving a comment and text on the screen. They are a human being that's right in front of you that will express emotions at what you say and is trying to make a point and is communicating with words that you're actually listening to. I think that changes the game, and I think that allows people to have more empathy and understanding, and to hold back on sort of the cruelness that debate can bring out in people sometimes. And so I do think there is a difference there. But I have noticed, yeah, I do think debate has become more cruel. Debate has become less about truth and more about a clip and more about like owning your opponent. And there is a good in trying to like win a debate in the sense of like making the best and most truthful arguments you can. But when the debate becomes about other external things and not about the truth, then I think it can get real nasty.
It's interesting because I think it's the avatar thing that you addressed earlier, where people are hiding behind their social media avatars and throwing pebbles and then ducking
Yeah.
under. I think a lot of people in today's sad reality of the advent of social media are actually learning how to have civil discourse based on what they see in the snippets without context.
Yeah.
Long form podcasts, for example, aren't anywhere near as viewed as short form snippets, 30 seconds, which undermines the context and it purely shows exactly what you want people to see. There's
Yeah.
obviously there's a lot more to the story as well. Um, what do you attribute that to? You know, because people are learning how to debate through the lens of something that's supposed to be captivating and not generally realistic. It's kind of like pornography. You know, it's disgusting, and people are adulterating this idea of union, which is supposed to be a
Mm.
beautiful thing, and learning how to do it in a disgusting way that's supposed to hook you. So what do you attribute that to? Is it the format that you think these debates are occurring in? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I definitely think part of it is just the nature of social media, and social media doesn't reward truth. Social media rewards engagement. And what's most engaging and entertaining to people are the like slam dunks. And we are very naturally as humans very tribalistic. And so we want to see our tribe, destroy another tribe. We like that. And that keeps us engaged. And so that's why there's a lot of those clips that go viral. And unfortunately, you do kind of have to play into the social media game just a little bit to even really succeed on there. And so, I have to think about that, and I have to think about, okay, how do I grab people's attention while still hopefully being calm and communicative and still sharing truth. Um, 'Cause it's hard. It's hard, being on the digital online space and, getting messages and comments that just, bring out all sorts of different emotions in you. And so, it's social media, the format, again, not having that human connection. It's a lot easier to say a bunch of mean, nasty things when it's just, on your phone and you're just typing it out and you're not actually seeing the person. And so I think that plays a huge role in just the downgrade of debate.
How do you personally prevent yourself from getting swept into that hive mind mentality on camera, off camera, particularly when you're with 20 other whatever that agree with you and there's one person that disagrees with you in the middle? How do you prevent yourself from getting swept into that hive mind?
Yeah, I think it just starts with a benefit of the doubt, giving people the benefit of the doubt of, hey, they might actually like just legitimately believe this and have a different outlook on things. And even if I think they're wrong on that, that doesn't make them a bad person. And actually, if I were convinced through the logical arguments and the evidence of their position, I would join their side and I would agree with what they're saying. And so uh just having a little bit of like empathy, I think, is huge. And I know empathy gets thrown around a lot, and there is a toxic version, I would say, but like real actual empathy for that person, putting yourself in those person's shoes and recognizing, hey, they actually probably believe this stuff, and so I should do my best to be winsome, and I should do my best to actually try to convince them of the arguments and lay it out in a compelling way, and just treating them like human beings, because that's how we would want to be treated. And
Why do you
so,
think?
I
Oh,
guess another thing. Sorry, I'll add another thing too, because
go on.
specifically online, because I address kind of in person. Online, how do I, you know, keep myself from just going down into the trenches?
Mm.
I think it's hard. I think sometimes it is appropriate to respond with snark and sarcasm, because sometimes responses are so dumb that they deserve something like that. So I'm not going to say it's unjustified all the time. And I constantly go back to this verse in Proverbs, and it says to don't address a fool according to his folly in case you become a fool yourself, but address a fool according to his folly so that he's not wise in his own eyes. And I think what the Proverbs is trying to communicate there is that there is a time and a place to sometimes, engage in sarcasm and address a fool according to his folly. And so that he's not wise in his own eyes, but that shouldn't be a characteristic of us as a person. That our characteristics should be loving, and it should be charitable, and it should be respectable. And so honestly, the block feature is really helpful for people in my DMs. Like literally just today, a few hours before this interview, someone messaged me and called me a Mossad agent. And so, I retorted a little bit back. And then I was like, you know what? This isn't actually going to bring out a lot of good in me or in this person that I'm interacting with. I'm just going to block him. I'm just going to block him and move on with my day. And so I have to do that. I think it's helpful to take breaks from social media and, to just not even look at notifications and comments and just be like, you know what? I don't owe anyone a response. And so I'm just going to let it be.
It's interesting on that. I was asking an elite endurance athlete, his name's Isaac Kenyon, how he knew when to quit. The difference between putting your body in danger and actually just toughening up a little bit and pushing through the grind. In a conversation when someone is drifting between the center line of being disingenuous or probably they're just disagreeing with you and they're being genuine though, how do you know when to pull back and say, let them have their piece? Or how do you know when to just block them completely?
Yeah. I think it requires a lot of internal thought and knowing yourself. Knowing when, you're getting to a point where you're just being angry with that person. Getting to a point when you start thinking to yourself, I want to like intentionally harm them with my words, that's when you need to be like, okay, I need to stop. I need to take a break from that. And so if you're at a point where, you're sparring and you're like, oh, I could hit them with this roast, like that would be funny, whatever. I think that's okay. That's an okay place to be. Of course, it takes a lot of discernment on your part and takes a lot of wisdom, I would say. But once your heart posture is less of like, hey, let me see if I could possibly, either win this person or win other people that are watching and that are listening in or looking at the comments. Can I win these other people over by this comment? And your heart posture is more, let me destroy this person. Let me intentionally try to harm this person with my words. That's when I think you need to stop.
The influence outside of the message is out of your control. And John Lennox, you'd be very familiar with John Lennox.
Yeah, I love John Lennox.
Yeah, Protestant apologist, obviously mathematician, but he tends to spearhead the apologetics of today's world. In his, what year was it where he was he debating Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins? And he was talking about the aftermath of that. And he got so many letters of people saying that they've found their way to God, not based on the arguments that he had, the logical arguments that he had, but based on the way that he conducted himself against the hostile crap throwing so to speak,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, another great example, which is close to home, would be the whole Charlie Kirk situation, where there's evidence of an individual who was genuine when he was met genuinely, and also knew when to fight fire with fire.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that now more than ever, that learning how to debate, not learning how to be, not simply just pursuing getting smarter and getting more knowledgeable, but actually learning the art of debating and how to conduct yourself in civil discourse is super important today more than ever?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you raised some great points and examples there, that oftentimes, uh, the persuasiveness of our arguments are not thought of very logically. They're thought of, very rhetorically. And I think it is a kind of a lost art, of actual good debate, of good rhetoric, of convincing people, and not just convincing your own side, but convincing the other side. Um, it's really it's a lost art, and I think so many, especially young men, like men my age and my generation, that I see online are so invested in the truth, and and sometimes not even really the truth, but more of just their ideas and winning, that they lose sight of the person, and they lose sight of actually coming across reasonable and persuasive to people and winsome. And that's just not the way. And as you said, that John Lennox example is a great example of how John Lennox was able to soften the hearts of atheists just by the approach he had, uh, to these debates. I mean, that's tremendous. And so, yeah, I think it's super important to study debate because you learn these things. And this is why I do encourage, like, every single parent, if possible, put your kid in high school speech and debate, because what it taught me, and it was just so key in my formation of, as a debater, it taught me to value the judge, because in formal debate you have your opponent and then you have a judge. And it taught me to value the judge, because the judge is ultimately the one who decides whether you win that debate or not. And they got to make a decision, and they're going to circle either affirmative or negative on their ballot. If you are rude and you come across as a jerk, the judge is not going to vote for you. The judge doesn't like to see that. The judge is actually interested in hearing out the arguments. And so it really helps train you to try to be persuasive as possible, to actually care about the judge. And something that I did in my debate league is, right before the round starts, we would ask the judge about their, background and about their philosophy, so that we could
Oh,
better
that's shrewd.
tailor our rounds to them, and actually, like, try to make arguments that would appeal to who they are. And so that was a huge part, and that is so lost in our culture. It's just completely gone.
Is the judge the people?
The judge, yeah, the judge can be multiple people. I mean, I think I go into debates, thinking about the audience, and
Mm-hmm.
not even just the audience, the whole entire audience, because let's face it, there's going to be people that it doesn't matter what you say. You could say something in the most persuasive manner possible. They will not care, right? They will not change their minds. I'm not interested in those people. What I'm interested in is in the people that are truly thinking about this issue, that are undecided on this issue. Someone that's undecided on this issue is not gonna be persuaded by one, bad arguments, but two, you being a bad person and you treating your opponent poorly. They aren't going to be persuaded by that, which is why you have so many people, especially in the United States, that have just such a disdain for politics and also just such a disdain for both parties because we treat each other terribly and people are just so done with that. And so that's who I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the people that are truly open to my ideas and how would I try to convince them?
What do you think about the way that Piers Morgan organizes his debates?
Oh man. Piers Morgan is yeah, I mean, it's kind of I think Ben Shapiro put it this way. It's kind of a clown show. It really is. I mean, it's just a bunch of people yelling at each other and interrupting and honestly, his format breeds that, right? And so,
His format
that's not
breeds views.
yeah. And Piers, I think his team intentionally or him intentionally selects people that are going to be crazy because that's what gets clicks, that's what gets views. But the question really is, are you wanting to get clicks and views or are you wanting to actually change something? Um, and this is where, you know, I think a lot I know a lot of especially like far right people, Gen Z far right, don't think that Ben Shapiro has any influence anymore. And I just think they're absolutely insane for thinking that.
Really,
Um,
why?
because and even if now I do think Ben Shapiro, like I do think the numbers are on his side as far as like view counts and things like that. But even if I granted that, what people are doing and what I'm seeing a lot of farther right people do is to post things for clicks. Um, but clicks doesn't actually mean change. And Ben Shapiro is way more persuasive than someone like Nick Fuentes in his manner and in his approach. Ben hasn't been perfect. I haven't been perfect. Charlie Kirk hasn't been perfect, right? But he's way more persuasive. And he's actually instituting real change. And he's actually developed a company that is doing that. And I think you can see this in actual election results. So I think there's two people you could look at. One, Thomas Massey, who just lost
Dude, that's
his
my
election
brother's
yesterday.
name. Sorry.
Oh,
That's
is it actually?
Yeah, go on.
That's hilarious. Well, Thomas Massey just lost his election. And
Ah,
Thomas Massey on the internet, and I've had people say, like, how could he have lost? Like, I thought he was huge on the internet. He just lost his election. And I think that goes to show that online, and he's more farther right, and like a lot of the far right really loves him. I think that goes to show that they're not actually instituting change. I think you can look at uh, the one of the candidates for governor, James Fishback. He's like blown up on social media, and he does all these social media things. His poll numbers are abysmal when it comes to like actual real Florida voters because he's not actually instituting change. He's trying to get the click. And
mm.
so uh that's my question for some of these people. Are you actually trying to change hearts and minds or are you just trying to get clicks on social media and make a quick dime on social media? And if you are, then you know that I think that's pretty dishonest, and I think you're actually contributing to the downfall of um, civil dialogue and conversation in our country. But um, I think you should abandon that. Um, but at least try to be honest about it. as opposed to trying to come off as like, that you're actually interested in the truth.
Hmm. I heard someone say once, obviously, Ben Shapiro said, facts don't care about your feelings. But I think it was, what's his name? Uh, Andrew Schultz, who said, feelings don't care about your facts. And it seems like that when you're debating, based on what you're saying, there needs to be this happy medium of making sure that you it's almost like you're debating two people. You're debating the
Mm-hmm.
logic of someone, and then you're also debating the emotional element of someone. And then there's the third outlier of you're trying to win the heart of the viewers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can stand there and you can demolish someone, which is my problem with the whole Piers Morgan thing. Is, look, I think it has its place because I too have gotten sucked into the rabbit hole of watching whoever I agree with
Yeah.
confidently debate and make someone else seem silly. But then you think about that and you're like, there isn't a single person from the other side who would have been convinced by that. Because when the minute that I find
Yeah.
that someone representing my points of views is getting dismantled, that tribal mentality doesn't kick into that tribal mentality kicks in, and I get a motive going, you just hurt one of mine. I don't go, oh, maybe this person's got a point. And the Piers
Mm-hmm.
Morgan mentality of everything sort of, it facilitates conflict, which, I mean, it's kind of like a Thomistic point of view where it's arguments aren't supposed to be given until they're won, but until they're understood.
Mm.
And you have to find that mediation between appealing to someone's logic, but more so the John Lennox side of things, appealing to their heart.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and this is where like this is not a new idea. Like you can
Mm.
go back to the Greek philosophers and there's three things that you need to do in a debate. You have the logos, which is right the arguments and the actual logic behind. That's important, but that's only one of three things. You have the ethos and you have the pathos, right? And the ethos is like credibility, um and making different like moral arguments and like your own moral credibility. But then you have the pathos too, which is appealing to people's emotions. All three of those things are essential in creating a very compelling argument. And we can't disregard those other two things just for the logos. And I will say, like, it can be really easy to just go after the person. And like I'm telling you, there are multiple times where I'm like, oh man, I could say something right now that would get me so many clicks, but it's not going to be persuasive. So I'll give you a couple examples of when this could have happened. So recently I was debating a Catholic apologist, and he was embroiled in a lot of scandal this last year with some different women and different things like that. I won't go into it. In that debate with him, right, I could have made a comment referencing that, and it would have been like really clever and witty. Um, but it wouldn't have been convincing. It wouldn't have been good or convincing to him, and it definitely wouldn't have been good or convincing to the Catholics in the audience. Another example, I debated Tim Miller on Jubilee, and he is a gay man, and he's adopted a child with another man. I have very serious problems with that. But the topic I chose was abortion, and he mentioned it. And he had mentioned earlier that he did not want to go into him being gay in particular. Now, again, I could have made a huge deal about that, especially because he said me and my partner, had been in rooms with women where we're looking at the ultrasound. I could have made a huge deal about that. I could have made some pretty witty comments that on Jubilee would have probably blown up. It probably would have gotten a lot of clicks. But was I going to be compelling to Tim? Would that have been loving towards Tim? Would that have been loving towards the people in the audience that are, seriously wrestling with it? And I think in my abortion debate with Tim, I think he was seriously wrestling with the issue because he wasn't very staunch of like, yeah, all 9 months. And he didn't even really have good arguments for his position, which was at the heartbeat. And so I think there was a legitimate chance for me to give him something to think about. And if I would have said something like that, Tim would have been like, no, Micah he's a jerk. He's a jerk. Why would I even listen to him? He doesn't care about actually convincing me. He just wanted to dunk on me. Right. And so I think that's really important.
Isn't it funny how what seems to be pro-social, dialogue, interesting conversation, what's the word? A little a little bit of grace given to whoever you're talking to. Those are sort of pro-social attributes where you're not trying to shut the other person out. You're not trying to exclude them from if you're, from the tribe, so to speak, because you still want them around. So you're engaging in that dialogue. Isn't necessarily pro-social media, and it's almost like we're coming back to that other point earlier that we made where it's almost the responsibility of the viewer to make sure that they understand the distinction between the two. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's basically there's two ways we can change. First is if the creators change themselves and they just say, no, we're going to stick to this. That's pretty unlikely. Creators usually try to follow what the audience wants, right? And so then the second option is us as the audience have to say, no, going to entertain this anymore. We're not going to do that. And so those are really the two options. And I mean, frankly, I'm not super optimistic about either of those.
No, that's not going to happen.
And so, yeah, and this is where, I'm trying my best to model as best I can what good faith dialogue actually looks like. And hopefully people see that and they say, you know what, like I would like to debate like that. Like I would like to debate and engage in good faith dialogue. That doesn't have to be watered down content. Like it doesn't have to be us singing Kumbaya together. That's not what I mean by that. There can be really good disagreement. But at the end of the day, we still treat each other with respect and with love. And I hope to try to model that so that people are attracted to that. And honestly, I think that's what Charlie Kirk did. Charlie Kirk, I think, did a really good job at that, which is why he was so successful. And not only did Charlie Kirk get views, but he instituted real change, like real change. And he not only just through his organization, but through the way he debated, he changed real hearts and real minds. And I think that's just evident in the response to his assassination. And so hopefully we see more creators trying to act like him than, act like some other creators.
Who do you think on the other side of the argument is the best representation of how to conduct yourself during a debate?
On the other side.
On the other side of your political alliance.
Well, I will say on the other side, I feel like of my religious and sometimes political if he talks about it, but is Alex O'Connor. That guy, that is a master class in rhetoric and persuasion and good faith dialogue. I really appreciate Alex O'Connor's demeanor in all of that. It's let's see, on the left, it's a little bit harder to quite identify. I would say, I think out of all my Jubilee debates, I think Tim Miller struck me as the best good faith interlocutor. Yeah, I think that's I would say Tim Miller in my experience. I would probably say too. Well, yeah, I would probably say Adam Mockler. I think is another is a young guy on the left that I definitely respect his debate demeanor way more than I do like a Dean or Parker. Now I don't think he's perfect, but there's a noticeable difference in my mind between Parker and someone like Adam Mockler. So that's a good question.
What's that difference?
When you talk to Parker, he's interested in destroying you. He's interested, and if it's recorded, he's interested in getting a clip for all his followers to be like, oh yeah, you got him, Parker. Like, good job. You completely destroyed him. Or, for his donations on his live streams. The difference that I've seen with Adam is that I think he legitimately tries to make arguments that are on topic and that are consistent. And his demeanor is calm. Parker gets crazy and he gets super emotional. I don't think I've ever seen Adam Mockler get emotional or crazy. And so I think that would be a difference between them.
If you could rank your hardest debate so far, who do you think that would be?
Good questions. I would probably say my debate with Destiny. And there's a couple reasons why. Well, first off, we didn't know who it was, and we didn't have the topics before. Now, Destiny did end up leaking them like 24 hours before we filmed. And so we got to know a little bit more, but it wasn't really a lot of time to do much prep.
So the whoever's in the middle gets exposure to what the topics are. The 20 surrounded don't.
Yeah, the person in the middle gets to choose the topics.
Okay.
So I think they interact with Jubilee, and Jubilee, I think, tries to spice up the topics a little bit more, just to make it more interesting. But the person in the middle is the one choosing the claims. And so there's that aspect to it. There's also the aspect to it that just Destiny is a good debater. I think Destiny is very emotional and doesn't necessarily conduct himself in the best way. But he's very quick and he's very smart and he has a lot of knowledge that he can just throw out right away, and he speaks very fast. So I think those are all things that can make it hard to debate Destiny. And so, yeah, probably Destiny is probably I would say the hardest debate I've had. For those two reasons, yeah.
What do you think about what's his name?
Andrew Wilson.
What do you think about Andrew Wilson?
To be honest, I don't like Andrew Wilson at
Mm.
all. Um, I think Andrew is the same as Destiny in the sense of that, he's obviously very quick-witted, obviously very smart dude. He just does not care about winning the person over. He does not. He wants to own them. He wants to destroy them, and he wants to use his words to do just that. And so I don't think he displays really Christian or Christ-like characteristics at all in his debate. He's calling people his names. He's going after their personal life. He's trying to discredit them, which is just ad hominem, fallacies. He does that a whole lot. He's very aggressive in his debates. And I just don't think that's Christian. And he claims to be Christian. I don't think that's very Christ-like. I think there is a time and place to, uh, have some banger one-liners. You read the Bible, and Jesus definitely has some crazy owns on the Pharisees, right? Um, but also, Jesus had wisdom and discernment, and he actually didn't do that most of the time. It was a very specific time, very specific place, and on very particular things. But Andrew does that with everyone for any topic, for any reason. And I just think that's inappropriate.
Imagine the crowd surrounding when he said to the Pharisees, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone."
Dude.
You're like,
mic drop, bro. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. I mean, Jesus
he was a
saying,
brilliant mind, wasn't he?
you broad of vipers. Like, oh my gosh, crazy. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
just
so
insert the meme of oh my god.
Joe Rogan doing that one at the UFC.
Yeah,
So good.
exactly.
So good. So all that all that being said, you know, conversation, it's a lost art. Where the world isn't necessarily reverting back to the old ways where, you know, dialogue was a natural muscle that we exercised all the time, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, with the advent of AI on top of social media, it seems like not just dialogue, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of serum or remedy for the way that we conduct ourselves in debate. But for someone listening to this, young man, young girl who is genuinely interested in developing skills in party conversations, party disagreements, they're not interested in the sport of it, but in how to conduct themselves. Because I too have been in situations where, your biology takes over. You start to get nervous. Your voice quivers. That's a massive one.
Yeah.
The quivering voice. And then before you know it, you're talking faster than your mind's going. How would you coach little John or Sally and the little steps that they can take to make sure that they optimize their ability to converse genuinely?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. There's several things I think I would say. So, one, start off with questions. Get to actually know the other person's side. And this doesn't actually just apply to John and Sally. This applies to, I think, everyone. And if you notice in my Jubilee debates, I do try to ask questions. I do. And I think not only are they a good way to show that you're actually interested in what they have to say. But they can be a good debate tactic as well. And I think asking more questions in conversation is huge. Seeking to understand their position, then to question it and what they have to say. And so for more on that, I would highly recommend reading one of Greg Koukle's books. Well, there's two actually that you could read. The first one is called Tactics by Greg Koukle. Excellent, excellent book on just tactics to use in conversation. And then the second is Street Smarts, which again is very similar on that vein, but has a lot of more Christian apologetics flavor to it. So start with questions. The second thing I would say is be okay with saying, I don't know. I think a lot of times in conversations, we have such so much pressure to know everything and to have everything ready to go and prepped. And in a formal debate, where it's like an expert on the field, that pressure maybe is a little bit more appropriate to have, right? But even with the expert on the field, there is no possible way you could know everything about a particular subject or know every single example or every single story or every single statistic. It's just not possible, not even for the expert. And so it's not possible for the expert. It's definitely not possible for you, which means, guess what? We're all in the same boat. And we all can realize that there are things that we don't know. So be okay with saying, hey, you know what? Like, that's a really good point. I don't know how to respond to that. I'm going to have to think about that. Can I get back to you on that with a response? Immediately, that person is like, wow, okay. Like, man, they said I made a good point. I'm giving them something to think about. They're going to come back. Okay, they're actually interested in an actual dialogue with me. And then for you, the humility yourself is good, because it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I don't know everything. And they really made a good point. And so I need to go research that and to engage in further dialogue. And I think that's really helpful to be more comfortable with that. And then third, as I said earlier, is practice. I mean, again, the best way to develop a skill is to practice, practice, practice. And so get into these conversations intentionally with people. Study, right? Read Tactics by Greg Koukle, then implement that in conversation, and study and practice, study and practice. And that's how you get good at anything, right? And so those are the things that I would say, just in normal conversation, dialoguing with friends or family. I think those are the most important things.
And if you do those things, it sounds like the self-imposed pressure, the biological reactions that you have of the frog in your throat or the rumble in the tummy,
Yeah.
seems to take care of themselves, because you're not putting
Yeah.
the pressure on yourself to win. You're entering the conversation genuinely. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about it this way, so I'm a big American football fan. I love the Pittsburgh Steelers. And
Oh,
in football, you hear a lot from rookie quarterbacks that the game moves so fast. They're like, this game, it's way faster than it was in college. But as they play more and more games, and as they get more used to it, the game slows down for them. They become more confident. They have been in this
Micah,
position before. Oh,
Can
yeah,
you start that rookie quarterback thing again, because
yeah.
Mumsy called me and it paused the recording.
Well, it's all good. It's all
So
good. Just so you know, by the way, on Riverside, I kept going because I know this, but my recording wouldn't have been harmed. So you could have just put me up.
oh, Okay,
okay.
my bad. There you go.
No,
Well,
it's
then
okay.
keep going.
It's okay. So I'm a big fan of the NFL. I love American football. And rookie quarterbacks often say that when they first get into the NFL, that the game moves so fast. But over the years, it slows down for them. And that's because they become more confident. They've been in that situation before. And so they kind of figure out what to do. And they just learn the game. They develop the skills. And as they develop the skills, their play starts to look a lot better. And so that's why there's a value on a veteran quarterback, because there's just those skills and that experience that they have, that's extremely valuable. And so the same goes with conversation, yeah. So when you first start having conversations, yeah, you might be stuttering, you might be tripping over your words, you might not be very articulate, but as you practice more, those things will be left behind and you'll get more confident in having conversations.
Micah, you're so cool. No, I really appreciate.
Thank
No,
you.
I genuinely, as someone, similar ages, I really appreciate the way that you conduct yourself and represent your ideas, whether we agree with things or not. I know that you're someone that I'm comfortable with having a conversation, and that's a lost art form in today. And if we can get more people like you out there representing, not just representing ideas. It seems like what you represent is more than just your own ideas, but it's how to have civil dialogue. And we need more people out there like you. So where can people? Of course, man. Of course. Where can people go if they want to find what you do and you?
Yeah. I mean, my username is basically the same throughout social media. It's just at Micah Kunkle. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok. It's MICAHKUNKLE. And so, yeah, I'm on all the social media platforms, Facebook, whatever. And that's where you can find me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Great conversation.
Cheers. Cheers, mate.